We're in the shop today working on some stainless steel trim. Now this is for a 66 Nova, but the same methods apply to basically any kind of stainless steel trim. We got a pretty major dent right there in the back of this. We got to get that one big dent out of there, and the rest of it's going to be sanding and polishing to get back to a nice reflective finish. Right, so I've got my workstation set up. We're going to try to get the dent out of this one piece that I showed you earlier. It's right here on the end. Luckily, we've got a nice wide open area to be able to hammer and dolly. We've got various things. We've got this is just a standard dolly like what you get at Harbor Freight or anywhere. This one has all sorts of different ends on it, but it happens to have a nice flat one. And it's real heavy, so you can do some pretty major hammering with that. This piece has come in handy several times. This is a piece of aluminum that came with the Dagger Tools kit from Summit Racing. Nice and flat and straight. We can use that for hammering and dollying. These hammers, also part of that Dagger Tools kit. Super handy. Block of wood, can't go wrong with just a little piece of a 2x4. A heel dolly, and then we've got this rubber mat. That came with the Dagger Tools kit. It's pretty handy if you need to have a little bit of give. So what we're going to start with is, we're probably going to start with this aluminum underneath. We're pushing from the back side now. So the plan here is to start with this hammer handle. It's got a nice flat end on the bottom, and we can just by hand push down on this. We're pushing and we're just pressing that dent out. Now, stainless steel is pretty tough stuff, so you're not going to get the dent all the way out, but it is going to make a difference. So once we feel that we've made a little bit of a difference, we can actually move to striking this with a hammer. Ever so slightly. We're not taking big swings at this. No need to get real aggressive. We've got to sneak up on it. You get real aggressive, it stretches the metal, and then you're just in trouble. So this block of wood, as we get a little closer to getting this piece straight, this block of wood is going to fit right in there. I mean, it is like it's made for it. And we may actually also use the block of wood underneath so that we have a little bit more give than this piece of aluminum. But essentially, this is going to spread that load out so that we don't have lumps and bumps from where we've been hammering around with the little stuff here. So if there's any tough spots, like towards the end right here, a lot of times you'll hammer your dent out, but there'll still be a little low spot right here. You can use this chiseling end right here and just lightly tap. It doesn't take much. These chisels are a little heftier if you need a little something stronger to knock the dent out of the end. But so far we've got the most of the dent out. We've actually got a little bit pushed where it's sort of an outie instead of an innie. And really all we've got is just some lumps and bumps from our hammer strikes that need to be smoothed out. If I turn this on its end like this, it gives me a good idea of where my low spot is, because this is nice and straight. So it looks like I've hammered out a little too much there. I think that's the real issue, is it's out a little bit. Now there's still a low spot right there. I need it right there. Right there. Sometimes what I'll do, if I can't, by the time you flip it over, you're like, okay, here's my spot that I need to be hammering on. And by the time you get it flipped over, or if you got to clamp it down or whatever, you forget where you're at, I'll take a little marker. So right there is my low spot. So I'll take a little marker and just mark myself around. I know it's kind of in the center. So that helps me be able to figure out exactly where I need to be hammering, just so I'm not chasing this thing around everywhere. Okay, let's get in there. This is a slow process. There's no quick and easy way to do it. still got a little flat spot right there. We might actually need to change over to to the wood. That'll help us get that flat spot out. Sometimes hammering on such a flat surface like that, you end up with a flat spot. You don't notice it. This looks flat, but it's actually got a little bit of a contour to it. I've got this out pretty much where I want it to be. I'm gonna go ahead and run a file over it and see, that's gonna show me the low spots immediately. Now, ideally, you don't want to file. Ideally, you want to just be able to sand and polish this stuff, because this adds a tremendous amount of work as far as getting these work scratches out of this stainless. Stainless is really hard metal, and when you're putting these kind of marks in it, be prepared to spend a lot of time sanding with 180 and 220 and 320 and 400 and really going overboard with getting these work marks out of there. You can see exactly where my high spots are. Hopefully the camera is showing that to you. Yeah, you can see that really good. You can see exactly where my high spots are and exactly where my low spots are. So that's a good thing. That's what we want. We want to file away the metal. So that looks pretty rough. I will admit it's not as good as I wanted it to be before I started filing. But when you start chasing these dents and low spots around, you could chase it literally for the rest of your life and not get it completely straight, unless you're a metal guy. This at least helps me understand, if it does need some more hammering, it helps me understand where to start. And this is actually showing, this looks like a low spot, but that's actually from where this is just slightly higher than the rest of everything else. So once we get it filed down, this will all even out. We're making some progress. It's looking a little better. We've still got a lot of shiny spots. That's all of our low spots right there. And all of these high spots are starting to level out. You notice that there's not quite as much splotchiness now. So we just keep working it. We might eventually get to a point where we try to hammer that little low spot out. Maybe that little low spot, maybe that little low spot. But now we know, instead of just working this whole area, we know that we need to just work these little areas right here. I'm pretty happy with what's cutting out of here. I think we're really getting close to having something good. You can see we still have a couple of low spots. I expected to see a little bit of this because everything else is higher, and I'm not gonna cut these completely out. I used 80 grit to take care of some of those real heavy scratch marks that the file left behind, and it's looking pretty good. I'm probably gonna go a little bit more because stainless just takes so much effort to get the marks out of there. So I'm gonna go a little bit more, but look how slick this is looking. This is really shaping up to be good. All right, I'm gonna save you the boredom of watching step by step by step, but look at this. We're making some progress here. We started with the 80 on a DA, and that got rid of those heavy marks from the filing. And then we did 180, and that got rid of the 80 grit marks. And then we did 220, which got rid of the 180 marks. And now we're kind of in the middle of the 400 stage. Now, once you get up to 400, you start getting into paper that's wet or dry use. It's up to you. If you want to spray a little water on there, you can. You can do it dry. Just know that this stuff, stainless, when I mean this stuff, it eats up the paper. I mean, you can see how this is clogged up, and this is just from a few swipes. So you really go through a lot of paper because basically it builds up in there and then it stops cutting. So as you can see, we still got some marks right here. We got a little bit more 400 work to do, and then we'll work our way to 600. By the way, I'm using a sanding block. That's that aluminum piece that we used earlier when we were straightening stuff out. It works good as a sanding block. It's definitely firm. You could also use a paint stir stick or something like that, but it's definitely important when you're, especially on the heavier grits. We'll probably move on and not do the block when we get to the finer grits, but those heavier grits, it really matters when you're trying to straighten something out. We have sanded and sanded and sanded. I'm skipping you the boredom. Everything, every square inch of it got 600 grit, and then we jumped to 1000 grit, then to 1500 grit, and then to 3000 grit, which is on this DA pad. All right, we got our 6-inch buffer. This came from Harbor Freight, nothing special. I got it on a pedestal, again, nothing special. It would be nice if this was mounted to something more solid, but no big deal for what we're doing. We're starting, since we worked this thing pretty heavily, we got to cut pretty hard. We're going to start with this yellow, I think it's called sisal, not sure how it's pronounced, but this is like rope. It's very coarse, and we use a black compound to get started. Then we step our way down. 4 stages. This is pretty intense. It's a lot of work, a whole lot of patience involved in doing this, and we have to be careful not to let the thing slip and bounce off of one of these things and put another dent in it. So we definitely don't want that. We definitely also want gloves and safety glasses. This stuff slings everywhere. As you can tell, you can probably see my shop floor. It's completely disgusting. So I'm gonna turn this on, put a little bit of this black compound in there. All right, now the brown compound. All right, now we're going to step over to the circle sewn white compound. All right, you can see we're starting to get some good shine right there. That is what you're looking for. There's still a little bit of marking. Oh, there I am. There's still a little bit of marking. See that haze that's on there? I haven't done any final like hand polishing, and I also haven't done the final buffing wheel. We're gonna do that right now with some red compound. I always wanna try to polish the part that I've had to work so hard. So this is where that big dent was. And look at that. That's about as good as you can ask for. I do still see a couple of work marks in there as far as like where I was filing and sanding so hard, but that is really about as good as I can ask for right there. That's a good finish, a good shine. I'm going to do one more step of polishing, and then it'll be ready to go ahead and polish the rest of this thing. You can see there's still a couple of marks, but of course I'm zoomed way in. You'd have to look pretty hard to find those marks when this thing is on the car. But we've got a good finish, excellent reflection. That dent that was there, completely gone. I'm super happy with how that turned out. So what we're gonna do is finish polishing the rest of these pieces. We've got 3 more pieces to go. And when we get done, we'll catch up with you and just show you what the finished product looks like. All right, here we go. This is the finished product, about ready to go back onto the car. Again, this is a 66 Nova I've been working on for a while, and this stuff polished up pretty good. You can see it's still got a little bit of haze on it, but not bad at all. It's something we can go back and do a final polish once we get it installed on the car, because no matter what, we're gonna print this stuff up and get it all smeared up as we're installing it anyways. So we're not gonna do that final polish until the car is pretty much complete and we're doing final assembly and, you know, just final details on it. But extremely pleased with how well this turned out. It's got a good reflection to it. It depends on what kind of light you're in. You can still see some of the marks, but it's not bad at all. Really great reflection, and that's what really matters when we're trying to polish stainless steel. We want to get that chrome effect, and I think we pulled it off right here with just a little bit of work. I mean, it was a process, lots of steps in the process, but didn't spend a tremendous amount of money, didn't spend a tremendous amount of time on it, and we ended up with a really, really nice result that's gonna look pretty good on the fresh paint job on that 66 Nova. See that reflection? That's what we're looking for right there. The little marks and things like that, we can keep working this stuff the rest of our lives and not get all of that out of there, but really happy with how this turned out. I hope you can use some of these tips and tricks on your classic car restoration. If you want to see more of this type of stuff, this is something I'm planning on doing more of. There's actually already a video on how to polish aluminum trim, like for the side of a car from the 60s. Go check that out. Thank you for watching.